Okay, hopefully everyone can see my screen now. Yes? Some people nodding yes. Okay, great.
Yeah, we can see
Good
it.
evening.
Yes.
Good evening. It is December 15th, 2020. Thanks for making the final Texas Wing Standardization Evaluation webinar for the year 2020. This one is geared for instructor and check pilots, but anyone is welcome to listen to this. I like to always begin our conversations reminding folks of our distributed structure. I do this a lot because there are many wings that have really 5 check pilots or 7 check pilots or something like that with kind of one wing DOV. With as large as we are and 40 some odd check pilots spread across 800 miles sideways and about the same vertically, it's impossible to have a good handle on everything going on. And so there are deputy standardization and evaluation officers that are assigned to every group that are local to that group. Louis Hilliard in group 1, Arno in groups 2 and 6, Matt Martin is heading up group 3, Dan Crum in group 4, and helping out in group 7, and Mike Duke in group 5. We also should remember that we have a glider specific person on wing staff. That's Carl Kyle. He may speak a little bit a moment later today as well. Also, any safety investigations get handled by Bob Wolin, who's our safety liaison. For all check pilots, wherever you are, you're always welcome to reach out to me. But if you want to work with someone local or I'm not available, any of those names on your screen have the full authority of Wing to do anything that needs to happen at Wing. And so feel free to reach out to these names if you're local to your area. Build good relationships with them. They can really help you out. Having started in the last session, I want to do this again. 5 people introductions, 45 seconds each. The idea here is that very few people here actually know everyone else and has actually come across everyone else. And you use this as an opportunity to be a bit social as well and just get an opportunity to introduce yourselves. If I call on your name, 45 seconds, what unit you're in, please give the city. No one knows if you say you're in unit 215, what the heck unit 215 is. So please tell us where you are. What brought you to CAP, why you're in it, a short snippet about your flying history and something about your real life, and anything you feel is relevant. So I've picked 5 names to begin with. Hopefully they're online. If not, then I get the honor of picking other people. So Suro, are you on the line tonight, Suro? No. Dennis Bazemore, are you on? I've got to do better at picking names.
Question.
Yeah.
Yeah, could you take me last? I've got to pass traffic on the national radio channel for just a second. I'll be back with you in a minute. Okay,
great. Thanks, Tom. Ron, Diana, are you on tonight? This is the encouragement for people to be on the call, I guess. Glenn Sorensen, are you on tonight? Okay, Josh Collier, are you on? Okay, so then I get to call on other people. Lou Thomas, why don't you're I think the furthest east of anyone on the call tonight, based on my math of where folks are. Lou, why don't you give us 45 seconds about yourself?
Yes, this is Lou Thomas. I'm in East Texas, Tyler, Texas. I moved here in 2000 from the National Capital Area of Washington, D.C. I've been in Civil Air Patrol this time since 1984, constant. I have been, before that, I was in CAP as a cadet and a couple of times for a short time due to my lifestyle. I'm a retired government employee. I'm a CFI. I've been running a museum here in East Texas for 5 years. And I've really been enjoyed working with CAP and flying with CAP and carrying out the missions that we have. It's a great organization. And I just, I'm still here. I'm getting old. It's not going to be much longer I can do this, but I'm going to stay as long as I can.
Okay, thank you so much. Since we don't have Dennis down in group 7, I see Alan O'Martin on. Maybe you'll be the group 7 representative tonight. Alan, are you available?
I'm here. How are you?
Okay. You can go.
Yeah.
You can go punish this for making me call on you now.
Okay. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, I joined Civil Air Patrol in January of '01. because I was retiring from the Navy in '02 and I wanted something to do. And it's given me plenty to do over about 20 years. I was a reservist, so had a professional job on the outside. And I'm now a CFI and an instructor pilot down here in Corpus Christi, not too far from Brownsville. So hopefully one day we'll be able to watch the rocket ship launch out of there. Been all kinds of jobs in the wing, wing staff, group deputy commander, down to deputy commander of our local squadron here in Corpus Christi. Love doing it, love teaching, and look to make a contribution.
Great, thanks so much. Steve Gladwin will make you third tonight. Welcome aboard. You want to give us 45 seconds on Steve Gladwin?
Okay. Originally Royal Australian Air Force for 11 years, engineering and modification work on the F-111, flew it a little bit as well as part of that engineering role. We had the only 4 reconnaissance F-111s in the world. Came to the US several times with the F-111 program, ended up living here. My job that pays the mortgage is a process engineer at NXP Semiconductor. Originally was Motorola Semiconductor. Because of my PAVTAC work in the F-111 system, I somehow got dragged into Green Flag. So with Civil Air Patrol, I've been concentrating on Green Flag program for ever since it started. I've been the training officer, national training officer for that for, I don't know, 8 years or something like that. Something on the side, because I was bored, I recently completed my type rating in the Airbus A320. Flew for FedEx for 2 years because I got sick of the engineering job. Yeah, so the Airbus was, I finished that 2 months ago and I'm working on my helicopter instructor rating right now.
Very cool. What varied life. Very great.
Hey, Steve, is the F-111, the last aircraft, if I understood it right, had ashtrays still embedded in the cockpit? Is that right?
It did have, well, yes, we did have ashtrays. That is true. Yeah, I actually flew the F-111 and the Mirage 3 occasionally as well. They were the most recent military technology that I flew, other than CAP Cessna 182s now.
Josh Collier is in group 1. I see Louis Hilliard on, but I think we had Louis speak last time. And so looking around, the only other group 1 person I see is Steve Pate. So Steve, you get the honors of Josh Collier's position.
Okay. And make sure that I'm not muted here. I started in CAP in early 2004 up in the Washington State Wing. Mission pilot instructor and Stanivel up there. Started flying in college, and I had my commercial instrument rating and hauled parachutist before I left school. 24 years in the Army, field artillery, and also spent the last about 11 years doing computer combat simulations and modeling of command and control systems and integrating them with simulations. Then after I retired, defense contractor, came down to Fort Bliss in 2005, transferred eventually to federal service, ran the simulation center at Fort Bliss. All my flying has been at the low end, no turbine time, but pistons, single, twins, single and twin C, gliders, and helicopters. And I'm a CFI II MEI, and I just enjoy getting out and flying with the folks and trying to keep people safe. And I currently have a Turbo Arrow, which is my get around private mode of transportation.
Thanks. One of the greatest things that I enjoy in the role I have is having the opportunity to have met as many of you as I have, just traveling around the wing. The varied backgrounds that everyone brings to CAP is just like, it's phenomenal. The stories that I hear of the things that people bring in, and I hope that you appreciate just taking 5 minutes out of every meeting to just hear some of the voices and names across fellow check pilots, because everyone here is an instructor check pilot that's leading the CAP activities in Texas Wing. And I think that's so important. Let's go and start the content tonight. First agenda item is talk about pilot expirations. So as everyone knows, there have been several extensions of the pilot, in particular 70-5, but also the CAP F91 expiration dates multiple times due to COVID reasons. The latest extension took it to December 31st, 2020. And I think the message has been absolutely crystal clear. There are no more extensions. Anyone who is not a pilot renewed by December 31st is not going to be able to fly on January 1st. That's a hard and fast deadline. The national headquarters has been publishing, and we've been monitoring the numbers of people that will not be, that are currently on track to not be current as of December 31st. And in fact, they publish, let's see if I can grab this thing here. It's this thing here. They actually publish, National does this, national viewpoint with color codes and whatnot. You'll see that for 70-5 evaluations, Texas is yellow. We have a lot of other wings that are yellow, but we are yellow. There are some greens out there. So we're not the best, certainly not the worst. We've been improving, but we still have, as of a week ago, we had 71 people who are due to expire by December 31st. As of today, I ran the number and it shows 58. There's a little bit of confusion because National resent the number today. They said it was 60, but when I counted up, I came to 58. I think the short story is that we just need to make sure that we have enough people that are going to be current by December 31st so we don't have any operational impacts, that don't have the ability to carry missions out because we frankly, in one certain area, don't have a current pilot. I guess I'm less concerned about the number being 58 or being 71 as compared to an answer that says, in Kerrville, it would be 0, right? It doesn't matter that we have current pilots everywhere else if Kerrville doesn't have pilots, or El Paso doesn't have pilots, or Granbury doesn't have pilots. Each of the senior wing deputy standing valve folks has a list of the exact names of people who are on this expiration list. So we're trying to track name by name. My understanding from them is that everyone has been contacted. Everyone knows what their expiration date is, but I think especially you all as check pilots should be in the middle of making sure that folks in your units, your local units, are up to date. And I'd encourage the wing assistants to send to the check pilots in your area the lists of pilots that are in your groups so that they can help on the grounds and in units where they sit. And we have let me pull it up here, a nice list here. It's in Excel, as beautiful as it can be, with the exact name. So we can track name by name exactly who it is by unit. And like I said, the 5 or 6 senior wing folks have this and should be distributing it to the check pilots that are in your area. At the same time, when you're in squadron meetings, unit meetings, make sure you're raising the alarm on this. It's a little harder to track.
This is Lawrence. Matt, I have a quick question for you. So there was a wing mission set sent out for some training hours in preparation for check rides. At least our group, there was an email sent out that has to be quote unquote approved by the group. What is your view on that? Is that true? Do folks have to have those hours approved by the group? Because my view is perhaps people are not getting those check rides done because they're not getting those precursor hours done.
So my understanding is that those were geared, those approvals are geared for people that are not either not current or not checked out in CAP and need hours in order to prepare if they are not yet a CAP member and current. There's certainly proficiency money for people to go fly out and prepare. But I will say that's really in the hands of Mark Hammock, and Mark should be joining the meeting a little later tonight. He said he'd be a little late. So if you can just hang to that question when Mark joins, we'll ask him that question.
Perfect. That sounds good.
Okay. The Form 91 numbers, it's a little harder to discern. It looks like we've got 20, if you look at these numbers, 20 people. I can't run an individual list because the problem is that everyone who expires their Form 5 in December 31st come up on the Form 91 expirations also. So I can't exactly tell who's going to expire. But I think a good portion of the Cap 91 expirations are the same people that are going to be expiring on their Form 5. Any other questions on the expirations other than the question on funding for training? Okay. The FAA exemption status was going to be a topic tonight. I think it's largely resolved. Everyone should have seen it that the FAA did grant the Civil Air Patrol exemption, but I did want to take this opportunity to remind all of us, and in working with our pilots in our areas, that there still exist certain rules about mission types that require more than just a private pilot. There are certain mission types that do require a commercial pilot, which would be not only a commercial certificate, but commercial privileges to include commercial medical, like Class 2 medical. And that all of this is detailed in CAP pamphlet 70-4. I've cut out a chunk of it here. It used to be really hard to find. It used to be on the Stanley National website, and they've actually turned it into a pamphlet. And so it's much easier to find now. But I just highlighted one of these. They've got this really nifty chart. You know, if it's this kind of mission, and this is who's on board, and this is whether it's an A or B mission, et cetera, who do you need to be able to fly the plane? And there are some times where the answer is going to be a commercial pilot. So make sure that, in particular, anytime you're carrying any non-cap equipment or non-cap personnel, that's really where we get into trouble. Non-cap equipment or non-cap personnel that we're transporting from one place to another, that really falls into those commercial privileges. The other interesting FAA thing going on right now is the COVID vaccine. I think I've gotten 6 different emails over the past 2 days amongst all the aviation groups that I'm in with the same message. And so I will give it tonight for those of you that have not seen it. The really short story is that the FAA is approving and allowing pilots to receive the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine, which is right now the only one that's out in the market. The Moderna one theoretically may be approved by the end of this week, and there'll be a second vaccine out there. But the key message is that there's a 48-hour no-fly safety duty interval. So if you're going to get the vaccine, remember that you're essentially grounded for 48 hours. From a CAP standpoint, I'd make sure that you're working within your groups to make sure that not everyone in your group gets the vaccine immediately at the same time, or there will be no pilots anywhere in that squadron for 2 days that have the ability to fly any red cap or emergency missions. We have Louis Hilliard, who's actually a member of the FAA team on the call, although he's not wearing that hat tonight. If there are any questions about that, I'm sure I or he would be able to chime in, but I think it's self-sufficient. I think the message is clear about what's been communicated. Great. The next topic I'd like to talk about, and then we're going to get into a little bit of some of the safety things going on in Civil Air Patrol, is I want to do a rehash of recruiting members to our Stanley team. And in particular, there is a process where we don't just make anyone who happens to come to us as a CFI and say, you're a CFI, God bless you, we're going to make you an instructor in CAP, or we're going to make you a check pilot in CAP, right? There actually is a procedure to make sure that we've identified them and that they have the skill sets to both be a good instructor and a good instructor or check pilot inside the Civil Air Patrol. This is a little bit formalized. It's formalized because there really is no other model out there in any of the documentation about how these things happen. And so it's really been haphazard in the past. But the idea is that in local units, when someone's joining, or you know of someone locally that's a CFI, you should raise that person to one of your regional check pilots or to the wing check pilots or the assistant check pilot. Let them know that we've got someone that's a candidate to be a part of the Stanley team. And we want to get them kind of capanized, right? Make sure that they understand not just how to be a CFI, but what 70-1 is, how you get releases, what murmurs is all about, just the entire CAP operating environment. And make sure that once they understand that we get them an evaluation. I've gotten feedback, very clear feedback, that we've made this a little too restrictive. And so I am making a change tonight to make this slightly less restrictive and hopefully free this up a little bit. And I've made a distinguishment between promoting someone into being an instructor and promoting someone into being a check pilot. So it used to be that for someone to get their initial instructor pilot evaluation, they'd have to fly with one of the wing standing valve folks, all those people that were on that first slide. We're backing off on that for the instructor. So for the instructor, any check pilot can fly with an instructor. It would be important that you communicate up the wing and let us know that it's happening, because at the end of the day, there's still an approval process to put them on the wing checklist or on the wing approval list. So just because you've signed them off as an instructor doesn't make them a wing instructor. You can sign them off as an instructor, but there is an appointment as a wing instructor that I have to do. And so if I get something that's checked off as an instructor pilot, and I have no idea who it is, where it is, or any of the story, they're not going to get approved to be appointed as an instructor. Doesn't mean they're not qualified. It just means I know none of the story. And so my recommendation is that you reach out and just make sure we have a clear story about who this is, why we think they'll be good, and who they're going to fly with to get their instructor check out. Right now, for the check pilot evaluation, we're going to keep that the initial check pilot evaluation still has to be with either myself or one of the senior wing standing valve folks. The theory there is that once we make someone a check pilot, they truly have the pen to do a lot of stuff for everyone else. And not that there isn't trust amongst everyone else who's going to examine them, but there is a certain standard that the wing assistants and I have been having conversations about around what we are exactly looking for in a check pilot. And so we're still going to keep that check pilot at that higher level of qualification. But for instructor pilot, we're going to free it up and not be quite as restrictive. And so if you've got someone that can be an instructor pilot, let's get them working on it. Just make sure you're communicating and passing the word up about who it is and why we think they're a good fit and what their background is, so on and so forth. Any questions on that? There is a proposed Texas Wing 70-1 supplement that has been approved by Wing, has been approved by Region, and is currently sitting somewhere in the national world to be approved. Once it's approved, in the supplement, it actually has this verbiage in there that to be a check pilot, it must go through a Wing assistant or wing standing valve, DOV or DOVA. Until then, it's not written as a regulation, as a supplement, but at the end of the day, it is still in the regulations that instructor pilots have to be appointed. And in order to be appointed, I have to appoint them. So that's the criteria that I'm going to use for instructor pilots and check pilots. So although it's not regulatory until the supplement is actually published, that is the standard I'll use. But like I said, any of the check pilots can take an instructor up. I think we can desperately use instructors, especially in some of our more rural areas where we're fighting for help. By the way, just as a complete aside, and it's not been published yet, so it's nothing that is enforceable yet. But there are a couple of other things that we've put in the supplement. And I thought about distributing it, but I don't want to distribute it because I'm afraid if I distribute it, then people are going to see the word supplement and it's going to get emailed around and people are going to think it's regulatory when it's not yet regulatory, and there's going to be confusion around it. Nothing is yet regulatory around it. But one of the things we've also put in there is some additional training for folks stepping between different types of glass panels. So GFC 700 versus KEP 140 and the G1000. Those people that are now flying with the GFC 500, 275, and 650 setup versus those that had the old Aspens, right? We've got all these different glass panels and we're putting people in them with zero requirement of training. And I think that's a disaster waiting to happen. So that's some of the stuff I hope that we can roll out also. And just to be clear, it's not onerous. In many of these cases, it's the documentation can be done as an hour of ground. It doesn't even have to be a flight, but God forbid, let's at least teach these people what buttons to push on all this equipment that we're giving them. Again, not regulatory yet. you've seen this slide before. This is what we're looking for in instructor pilot. So if you're a check pilot that's going to take an instructor pilot out, or you think that this is someone that would make a good instructor pilot, I will send this out to you all as check pilots. You've seen it before, and it is actually sitting on the wing stand eval page. But this is just a quick reference sheet that says, here's the standards. This is what we want. There is nothing else published anywhere in 70-1 that says this is what it means to be an instructor pilot. This is our best attempt to say, at least let's put some kind of wording around things that make sense. Any questions? I'm going to move to new topic. Any questions on any of this check pilot, instructor pilot, any of this stuff? Okay. We've talked at the last 3 webinars around evaluations and the new 70-5 that is not so new anymore, and about the documentation expectations, in particular the requirement to have a plan and the requirement to communicate ahead of time with the person you're going to fly with what the plan is, and making sure that you yourself have a plan and that everything is carried out in the plan. Most importantly, that there are a whole host of absolutely mandatory, documented, required items that must be done on a 70-5. And CAP provides a handy dandy guide that shows you what is the evaluative criteria for every single one of those items if it's an item that is not already covered by the FAA Airman Certification Standards or Airperson Certification Standards. This is a real, not fake, not made up, but real CAP Form 70-5 that I pulled that was given on December 7th, 2020. So we're talking 1 week ago. Current stuff. What's wrong with it? A bonus point to the first person that says what's wrong with it.
No basic instrument maneuvers.
Arnaud is correct. There is no basic instrument maneuvers that have been marked on this Form 70-5. You can tell even in this kind of bad photocopy that they are italicized. That means that they are required. We gave someone a great Form 70-5, did everything on there except this set of items, basic instrument maneuvers. The person went up and said, look, I just had an IPC. I just had an instrument proficiency check that counts for all the instrument stuff, and I don't need the basic instrument maneuvers. That is not true. It is a required item on a Form 70-5, regardless of anything else the person has done. That's in the regs. Now, an IPC will waive the instrument demo for instrument privileges in CAP with certain proviso and is recency done, and you have to review certain things and so on and so forth. But at the end of the day, the basic instrument maneuvers is done under the VFR evaluation. It has nothing to do with an IPC and requires someone to be under the hood doing activities, including recovery from unusual flight attitudes. A Form 70-5 cannot be completed unless you have a hood on the plane. Like fundamentally, there is no way to get a 70-5 done unless there's a hood in the aircraft to do these activities. This has been going on since March with our new 70-5. And so I want to impress again upon everyone the importance of this. This really took our attention because we actually had 2 separate check pilots in the last 30 days finalize Form 70-5's evaluations with folks, leaving off basic instrument maneuvers. 2 separate check pilots in 2 different units. And so when I saw that, I thought that might be an opportunity for us to talk again about the importance of making sure that every italicized thing is done, and more importantly, that you have a plan, a documented plan, and that there is an expectation with you and the check and the check ridee about what it is that's going to happen during that evaluation flight. Any questions around the evaluation around 70-5? I mean, we've covered this like 3 times, so I don't want to go through every single pamphlet and regulation again, but I think the message is clear, and I'm surprised to continue that we're continuing to have problems with this as a check pilot crew. Okay. What I'd like to do now is, having talked about evaluation, I'd like to talk for a minute about safety. I don't actually have a slide set up for this, but Izzy Perez offered to join our call tonight. Izzy is, for those that don't know, my boss. He is the Southwest Region Standardization and Evaluation Officer. He oversees all wings in the Southwest region. And he sent me, let me pull these up here, some nice photos. And I thought we'd have a minute or two of conversation about the photos that he sent me. Izzy, you there?
Yes, sir, I am. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Izzy.
Okay.
You have the details, and I think people are seeing
Okay,
this aircraft.
this is November 23, November Juliet. Okay, it's I believe it's from the New Jersey wing. This happened on Central Jersey Regional Airport. This is being flown by a captain, which is being recurrent. So he got approved an A24 sortie for recency of instruction. And he was flying with an instructor to get recurrent, a lieutenant colonel. It was late in the afternoon. And if you remember I would say a couple of weeks ago, you guys saw the warning on Wimmers when you log in on Wimmers saying that, as a crew member, say something, take the controls. This is the cause. As you can see, there is a nice tree right there. And you can see the arrow on the runway, which will tell you that there is a displeasure threshold. I don't know if the pilot was flying to the piece of concrete, but if you notice, the displeasure threshold is several feet down the runway. The first picture that you saw is just to corroborate that the wing impacted the trees. So you can see the green part on both wingtips. Eventually ended up, that's where the impact of the nose is after it just dove down. This is what happened when it impacted the tree. And the nose impacted as you can see how hard it is that it broke the engine compartment. This is a picture. Remember, these are the pictures after they flip it over. Everybody survived. But again, that is the emphasis of, CRM. And if you're an instructor or chair pilot, don't stay behind. Doesn't matter who you fly with. If I'm flying with Shane and Shane sees something that he doesn't like, he takes the controls, we discuss it later. That is the main point. Apparently that was not the case, and that has been already totally destroyed and is out of the inventory. That's all I have on that accident. Shane, regarding your evaluations that you mentioned, I noticed on the scheduling module, there is nobody scheduled in your wing to take a check ride from today until the end of the year. So I believe you got 17 91s, almost 53 4.5s. So it's going to be really hard to. National is very concerned. Texas is not the only one. Many of the wings are in really bad shape. And at this point, several of situations escape our control. People don't want to fly because of the COVID. All the limitations that we have lately. At the end of the year, we will see how many pilots we have left.
We're doing 2 Form 5s tomorrow.
Well,
I did one today.
Let me rephrase it. As today, there was only one schedule. I didn't see the other two. I took it early in the morning.
There's 2 scheduled. They've been on there for a day.
Yeah. Well, we need 50 by the end of the month. So this was an A24 mission. The pilot was trying to return back to flying status. That's what happened when the IP doesn't take charge. Thanks, Shane.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Izzy.
No problem.
I mean, this goes back a little bit to, so we talked about in kind of the January timeframe before the new 70-5 came out, where the accidents are coming. And the accidents are coming more than anything else when you've got an instructor and a candidate, whether it's a form, you know, it used to be the old Form 5 or training flights like that. It's unfortunate. That is where our accidents are coming. They're not coming on the actual search and rescue missions. They're not coming on the ES missions. They're not coming on the disaster relief missions. They're not coming on the Cadet O flight missions. They're coming, we've got an actual instructor in an aircraft with someone else. And it's incumbent upon you all to make sure, and it's a hard thing, right? It's exactly when you grab the controls, but clearly this instructor pilot grabbed them way too late. Izzy, someone was asking me about whether we had any news on the unfortunately fatal accident that happened a short while ago also. Do you have any information on that?
No, I talked to Mike Moyer. He's my boss at National, and on the last Region DOV's meeting, he mentioned that he was part of the investigation group. Somebody asked him if he can share some of the stuff, and he declined. And everything is an investigation, and apparently the FAA is heavily involved as well.
I'll bet. Thank you, Izzy.
If you have a minute, I also would like to mention a couple of things for your instructors.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, on the last meeting, National, and this is because some of the wings are complaining. Number one is we may go back to CFIs able to endorse instruments on the Form 5s, because some of the wings don't have that many CFIs. So if you guys remember 4 or 5 years ago, that was the case. We changed it, and apparently we might change it back. And the other one is the training for high performance airplanes. The supplement says only 182s. Now they're revising it, and it may be done on a 206 or even on the GA8. And also reduce either the number of hours and the number of landings. So there are things that they're discussing at the national level. And finally, something that is very good coming for Form 5 pilots. It had to do with some flying up, and this will be very good news in the near future. Thank you.
Well, you're just going to leave us hanging like that?
Well, I'm not at liberty to tell you, but you can imagine. It's very good because we will have the highest level of subscription on that app for free.
Okay. Okay. But we can't say what it is. We're just, it's an app with subscription.
Yes.
For free.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Izzy. I appreciate you staying on. Anyone have any questions or things they want to address to Izzy? And I look, I appreciate him. He's got a multiple wings that he manages, and he offered to be on tonight's call. Any questions about any of the topics he discussed tonight or brought up before I go on with other agenda items?
This is Gerard Gillard. Go ahead.
Yeah, Gerard, go ahead.
Okay. All right. Just on the question of the A24 mission, can you outline the guidance of when and how much you can use that for onboarding?
I believe there is a supplement for that one. And it is for onboarding pilots, new pilots, and for your pilots who let the currency of their Form 5s and they want to come back and fly, the WIN will approve it. Let's say, for example, I decided to stop flying now. In a couple of years from now, I said, hey, I would like to come back. Somebody decided that, yeah, it's worth it. And that will be the reason. But I believe there is a supplement for that is specific. It doesn't specify exactly for the retraining. I think it does it for the onboarding. I think it's 3 sorties.
Hey, this is Matt. You're still in my thunder. We're going to go over this exact topic here in a few minutes.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks so much. Any other questions for Izzy?
And Tom has
Okay.
one.
Go ahead, Tom.
Well, I'm just a little bit concerned about the, emphasis on the lack of the 50 that need to be done before the first of the year. Surely we're not de-emphasizing the importance of a virus at this late state in the game where we have our vaccines about to go around, and we don't want to seem like we're pushing pilots into getting in the cockpit that they really don't need to be in, are we?
No, National is very concerned of both situations. I saying this is a problem that we have, but this is a problem that we may encounter as the CAP as an organization that provides pilots for most of their missions. But no, there is no push to do it. If you don't feel to go flight, I'll suggest don't.
Yeah.
Well, Tex,
And I would say,
go ahead.
yeah, I'd say we want to be clear about the numbers that are out there, but I also want to be clear that we've looked at the numbers in Texas, and frankly, of the 70 and it's actually down to 60 that have to be done. Of those 60, the top 20, once you get the top 20 done, the remaining 40 average less than 3 hours a month anyway, right? We have a lot of people that are qualified, that are Form 5 pilots that don't fly a lot of hours. And so from an operational standpoint, the number that we have to have is actually much lower than that number 60 or 70. And so although we'd like to get everyone we can,
I will say
let's be cautious about saying we have to get everyone done.
Yeah, you need 15 mission pilots. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Mm.
So
well,
I think we're in a much
we
better
need
spot.
whatever we can get safely done. Is what we need.
Oh yes.
Okay. Anything else from anyone?
Bruce Stone here. Do we have any counting of any of our pilots or instructors that have gone out with the COVID?
I don't know what you mean by gone out with COVID. You mean that are sick and unable to fly because of COVID?
Yeah, any that came down. I mean, even recovered. How many have actually come down with COVID and had to go offline?
I don't have any of that data. Yeah, I don't know that we have any of that data.
And neither is National. No.
So
we know that we have several, but the other problem that we're running into it is the I don't know if the term is correct, the HIPAA or HIPAA liability that we're not supposed to say anything about it.
Okay, but I would think if somebody had if any of our guys went out with the COVID, they would let somebody among us know. So
we hope so.
Okay.
All right, I'm going to move on to our next topic, and that's equally a story around increasing our pilot numbers. There is an official national challenge, call it challenge or competition or any way you want to word it, that General Smith has announced. It's the Pilot Onboarding Challenge, and the theory of this challenge is that we have that CAP nationally has a lot of people that join CAP that are pilots that join CAP, but to get them from that initial joining as a pilot to actually a Form 5 pilot or even a Form 91 pilot, like there's a road, and sometimes it's challenging, and sometimes we lose people in that road of when they first joined to actually get them to be a useful CAP pilot. And so the challenge that General Smith has put forth is statistics on how successful each wing is at converting members that are pilots that join CAP on or after the 1st of August 2020 to get them to actually become a pilot. And so they actually track the number of people who join who are pilots and how quickly they get to be a Form 5 pilot. As our director of training, I've had a chat or two with Matt Martin. I've asked him to kind of look at this, and he's going to speak to this for a couple minutes tonight. So Matt, the floor is yours right now.
Okay, thank you. And if you don't mind, Shane, I'd like to share my screen here.
Yeah, I will unshare mine and you can have it.
Okay. So
go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, as Shane mentioned, yeah, let me just do the desktop here. Okay. Hopefully you guys can see that now. We have this national challenge. And the idea is to, to get as many pilots onboarded as we are able to between July of 2020 or rather August of 2020 and July of next year. The good news is we're already ahead. We've done 13 new pilots this year and the criteria is they have to be a new CAP members, right? If they were longtime CAP members and who are just now getting their pilot certification, that's great. We need those guys, but they don't actually count against this challenge. So we've done 13 so far. We're #1 in the nation. I think California is nipping at our heels with 11, but we've got another 6 months to try to beef up those numbers. So we've got a couple of things to help with that. The first is the funded onboard mission training. And so you guys may have seen this memo go out a week or so ago. And I've got a revised version. We've had a lot of questions. I've got a revised version here I'm about to send out. And this outlines the criteria for both the A0, which is the onboarding, and the A24, which is the return to flight. And I'll cover both of those. We've got funding for both, and they're 2 separate mission numbers. But for onboarding, we're asking that those be approved at the group level. And so there's here the criteria, the process of getting that approval using the form here that's attached to this letter. And I'm going to be tracking all of this. So I'm kind of at the end of the line here. Once you have the approval, you can send the form to me. And when you do the sorties, you want to annotate, the fuel. And there's a syllabus, which I'll talk about here in a second, that go as well. This is the A24 request, and this is the return to flight. So we're just asking that if someone has expired and they want to renew their currency, get a new eval, we have funding for that. We kind of want to make sure there's some reason. Could be COVID, could be some other medical issue, could be anything really. Like maybe they were going to school, maybe they're in the military and they were deployed. Doesn't really matter. We just kind of want to see that they weren't just not pursuing because they weren't interested. There was some reason why they lost their currency and are now seeking to regain it. So that goes here, and then that just needs to go up to the squadron and the group, either the commander or the DO, for approval. Then you can send it back to me. It's also not a bad idea to upload it to ops quals, and that way for other FROs who are looking to release those sorties, we have that documentation there. For the onboarding, a little more information, because we want to make sure that we can quickly onboard people, that we're not starting from scratch, that they've been doing some flying, because we're only we've only budgeted 3 hours per onboard pilot, which is not a ton of time, right? So if someone hasn't flown in years, they probably need to do a little bit of work ahead of time to get ready, because the focus is really going to be on flying for the CAP. So that's why we ask for this information here, to make sure they have some semblance of recent experience before we spend the 3 hours to get them to an eval point, and then the same squadron and group, or up to the squadron, to the group, commander or DO for approval, and then upload the form to ops quals, send a copy to me for tracking purposes. And so we've got between now and August to try to crank out as many people as we can using this approach. And so this mission number will be open for that. For that actual onboarding process, and hopefully you guys have seen this, there is a syllabus, right? This is a syllabus that when the CAP released all of the new 70 series guidance a couple months ago, one of the documents was this syllabus, right? And it outlines all the required content for different training events, including onboarding of new pilots and the return to flight. So if you go down here this is all on the CAP National Stand Eval website. It kind of outlines what the expectations are for the ground training, what the expectations are for the flight training, including the CAP 70-12 pamphlet, which I'll talk about here in a second, and the actual content, right? So there's only one syllabus outline for both the onboarding and the return to flight. This is the one for the onboarding. But you can see there's quite a lot of things here, right? So you probably wouldn't get through all this in one flight event. Probably two is a good number, and so that's what the 3 hours is for. And then the return to flight, kind of same thing. Here's a little listing of the expectations, and then a sortie content, same thing. I mean, you could, if somebody was flying regularly and proficient, you could certainly get through all of these in a single flight, but we've got additional time available. And then along with that, there's an onboarding pamphlet, and this is really, I've been going through this. This is a really useful resource, right? If you've got, you guys all know, joining CAP and then getting to the point where you are ready to start flying airplanes is like, it's kind of an opaque process. There's quite a lot involved, and it can be very, what do you call it? Disincentivizing to new folks if they don't have a clear path to negotiate all of this, right? And so that's what this onboarding document is intended to do. It goes through step by step everything that you really need to absorb and comprehend to get ready to be a proficient CAP pilot, where you can reserve the airplane, you can schedule a sortie, you can go out and you get a flight release and go flying, right? So it starts out here with kind of the foundations of the CAP approach to flying, the learning management system, including all the access courses that you have to get through as a prerequisite, how you navigate e-services, how you navigate ops quals, right, to get all of your qualifications uploaded and validated, the FAA requirements, key elements, and then WIMRs, right? And then it actually shows you how to go through WIMRs and schedule a sortie and set it up and fill out the briefing tab and go all the way through getting your flight scheduled and released, the structure of the missions, like everything that if you needed to sit down and explain to somebody from scratch how to become a CAP pilot and all the things you need to do that aren't flying the airplane, it's all in this pamphlet. And then it even has if you've got a new person who wants to become a CAP pilot and they need a little help, it's got an outline for mentoring sessions at the back of the pamphlet on if you want to sit down and talk about all this stuff with somebody and get them ready. So first of all, give them a copy of this because it's super helpful. Again, it's on the National Stand Eval website. But then here's 2 mentor sessions that you could spend with somebody, maybe on the back end of a couple of squadron meetings, and help them get through this process and get ready to actually start scheduling stuff. So that's kind of the overview. And I've been trying to be very available to, especially by email, to help people with this process, and also doing a lot of instruction and give some check rides myself. So the challenge is, let's go out and get some people trained up. And right now we have a little bit of an opportunity, especially in the DFW area. There happens to be some, a large pool of commercial pilots who may be a little bit underemployed right now. And this may be an opportunity for us to get some of those folks on board and take advantage of their experience. So that's what I got, and I'd be happy to take your questions.
Hey,
Matt,
can
we distribute the list of candidates that we get, like, that I showed just the very beginning of it, so that folks know who are the prospects in their local units?
Sure.
So we can send that out as an email to the check pilots and instructor pilots, so the instructor pilots know, like, oh, here's my unit number, and here are the 2 names or 3 names in my unit that count in this challenge, so we know who to go after.
Okay. Yeah, I'll start putting that together and sending it around.
Any questions?
Carl, Kyle, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Carl. Good. I can hear you, Carl. Can you hear me? Oh, we lost
Carl? Carl, turn your volume up. Okay, any other questions?
Matt, can you hear me? This is Jonathan Titchener.
Yes.
So you got 3 hours of funding. What if somebody needs more than 3 hours?
Then I would say whoever that instructor is and I should have a discussion, maybe with the squadron leadership as part of that discussion to figure out exactly what we think that person needs. And if we need another flight, another hour and a half, then we will find that hour and a half if the instructor is confident that that person is close to being ready. If not, then then if it looks like they really need to go back to basics, then we could talk about that too, and maybe recommend some specific steps that member can take to get ready.
All right, because obviously in the DFW area, we have a lot of G1000 aircraft.
Yeah.
And if you look at the G1000 transition plan, I mean, you 2 VFR flights, 2 IFR flights. I mean, you're not going to get that done in 3 hours. That's just unrealistic.
Yeah, that's true. But well, so in that case, right? In that case, there is a syllabus in here for. Let's see here. So if you look at this CAP syllabus, that's a great point, right? If you look at this CAP syllabus, there are some transition. Let me go to the actual syllabus. There are transition requirements, right? So for example, there's a G1000 transition syllabus. And that transition syllabus, you're right, there's a VFR part component to it. That's 2 flights. There's an IFR component that's 2 flights. So this is really not intended to be a transition. The onboarding, the 3 hours of onboarding is really not intended to be part of that transition. Now, what if you only have G1000 flights available or G1000 airplanes available? So this summer we had a mission number that we were using for technically advanced aircraft, right? To get people spun up on G1000, 206 and the GA8. We're trying to get that mission renewed to make that available again, specifically for these transition events. It's not there yet, and so I'm still working on it. We do have some other missions available that we could potentially use, like the monthly emergency services mission numbers with some funding attached to them. So if you have somebody who is a good pilot that kind of meets the requirements of, if you complete this onboarding list with somebody and you fill out this information and they're like, okay, I got lots of stuff and I'm current and I'm flying, but I've never flown G1000 before, then let's talk about that and see if we can identify a couple transition authorities under a different mission number just to do the specific G1000 stuff, and then use the onboarding to get them ready for their eval.
That could include the Charlie self-funded mission number, couldn't it?
It could, right? If they wanted to, if somebody was really keen to get going and they wanted to pay for a flight or two just for G1000, absolutely. We're definitely not going to stand in the way of that. But the idea is that we want to make this as easy as possible for people to get up and going.
Yeah, most people want to get through this and not pay for anything. So obviously,
yeah, so
trying to make it as simple as possible for them.
Right. So
the other question I have is, once somebody has gone through the onboarding process, what's the process for them to get a Form 5? Or is there a process to get them a Form 5 which is funded?
Yeah, so we can use the current eval mission number for people who have gone through the onboarding process, just specifically to do the eval. So we'll use that.
So that's
just the regular Form 5, Form 91 mission?
Yeah, I think that's true.
So if so, that may be true, Matt. That would be new, but if so, then that's great if it's true.
Okay, so stand by on that. I think
let's just verify that's true.
This is Lou Thomas. I have a question.
Yes.
I have a new pilot in TXWG. He just joined, and for this type of training, if I go out and fly with him for 3 hours, then who's going to give him his Form 5?
Well, technically, there's no restriction on the instructor also given the eval. Obviously, it's not ideal. So, you know, when we enter somebody into this process, let's try to think ahead a little bit about who's gonna do that check ride. If there's nobody else available, then you know, we'll do what we can. But we've got plenty of check pilots around. So
Well, but, you know, I am sitting out here in East Texas, and that's not very many check pilots around here.
yeah. If that is the case, then we'll work through it. But
yeah. So Lou, fortunately, the new 70-1, when it was released, did release some of the old restrictions that used to be there about the instructor pilot not being able to also be the check pilot. So although it may not be ideal, you are not hamstrung to be prevented from that. So if
right.
especially
Well,
until we get some more people going on in Sulphur, and we've got 2 people who are targeting right now in Sulphur Springs. So hopefully we'll have some more help for you out there in group 2 soon.
Okay. Well, what I'll do, Shane, I'll call you before I do a Form 5 for this guy.
Great.
And we'll talk about it. Okay.
Okay. Sounds good.
Bruce Stone here. I just wanted to make sure I understood. I'm in the 70-1 on the onboarding. It's specified, it says training, whether it's on the ground training, says transition to complex airport will not be performed. So I read that we can onboard on the high performance airplanes. Am I correct?
right, if they already have a high performance endorsement, right? If they have a high performance experience.
Okay, if they have the time and the high performance, so we can.
Yeah.
On that. Okay.
Yeah, if they need one, there's a space here on the form for it. If they need high performance endorsement, then we'll need to think about it, right? If you know, ideally, if you got a private pilot who doesn't have a high performance endorsement, you know, we start that person at 172. If there's no 172 available, then we'll have to think about it and see if there's a way to get that person, because the high performance transition requires a lot of experience, right?
Right. And I believe they have to have 10 hours to have the high performance endorsement.
They have to have 4 hours of dual instruction, 25 takeoff and landings, and a minimum of 100 hours total time, you know, per this syllabus. So obviously you're not going to do that in 3 hours. So we're going to have to think about, you know, for those kind of individuals where there's just not a 172 available, we're going to have to think about how to get them through that. But I think with a little bit of creative thinking, we'll figure something out.
Okay, I'm thinking the FAA high performance endorsement versus what the cap requirement. So,
yeah.
I want to thank Matt for really pulling this together and making sure that we're all educated about what's out there. The amount of stuff that National has put out around these pamphlets and this training, and like it's overwhelming in some cases. And Matt's really done a great job of helping to build this together. He is the wing training officer. So when you've got folks coming in and you're not sure about onboarding, you're not sure about how to transition someone, like whatever it is, he's the man. So reach out to him. He's been incredibly available and he's really easy to work with. I appreciate everything he's done. So I encourage you to make use of him as a resource.
Hey, Shane, I got a comment for Matt. It's Greg
Yeah.
Aaron. Anytime you're looking at training somebody in the G1000, you cannot do it in the airplane effectively.
I agree.
You have to do that in some type of simulation mode, either with auxiliary power on the ground, applications uploaded to their iPad, or something else. If somebody's trying to take 3 hours and teach somebody G1000 in the airplane, that's an impossible task.
Yeah, I agree. And right, so again, the intent is not to use the 3 hours to do transition to technically advanced aircraft, because we have a technically advanced aircraft transition syllabus for that, and it's longer than 3 hours and includes quite a bit of ground instruction. So, you know, if you have somebody that's ready to onboard, but they don't have previous G1000 experience, and the only aircraft you have available are G1000 aircraft, then we're going to have to think a little bit about how to get them through a transition course before they do the onboarding, right? And I think every situation is going to be a little bit different. So if you have somebody like that, get with me and we'll talk through it.
And remember that there are people who are coming to us new that have G1000 experience in the past. If they have G1000 experience in the past, although there is a G1000 transition process, there is in 70-1 a waiver, an exemption that can be given by the wing standing eval officer for sufficient background or documented background in a G1000 aircraft. So if someone comes with G1000 experience, we can waive some of that. But again, to Matt's point, it requires some background, some understanding, some conversation, making sure we're clear about who the person is and what they come with.
Yeah, and just a note, if you guys haven't had a chance, the access courses that are online now for G1000, there's both an IFR and a VFR course. They're really good. They have a lot of videos. They really show you how to use the G1000 in different environments. They're really engaging. And so that's a really good place to start when somebody has the buttonology down and they want to go through a course that helps them just understand how to actually use it in flight. Those are great courses on access.
Okay. I've only got one more slide. Go ahead. One more question, and then we're going to move on.
Rick
Go ahead, Tom.
Rick McElroy
Rick.
here.
Go ahead, Rick.
Matt, I was under the impression, we have an onboarding mission. I can't remember the number of it right now, but there's two different mission symbols you can use for that, A0 and A24.
Yes.
I was kind of going under the impression that with my onboarding students that I have, I've got 3 or 4 in my squadron that do not have G1000 time, that they would be using the A0 symbol because they have not had a Form 5 yet with CAP. And they would be eligible for that 4 hours of training that's specified in 71.1 aircrew training airplane for high performance aircraft. And the A24 would very well could come under the 3 hours that you're talking about for requalification of rusty pilots. Is that incorrect?
Yeah, not quite. So A0 is onboarding. A24 is the requal. 3 hours for both, and the intent is to onboard pilots who already have the experience they need to get the eval. Like they already have the FAA experience that they need to get the eval, and the onboarding is to indoctrinate them into the CAP, procedures and way of flying, right? So again, if somebody doesn't have the requisite experience for those types of airplanes, either high performance or technically advanced, then that's not really what the onboarding is for. We still want to get them onboarded, right? So we will find a way to get them the experience that they need to do the onboarding. And yeah, so we're just gonna have to think through that for each one of those individuals.
So none of the training for these pilots that I'm talking about that are onboarding should be done under the onboarding mission, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, if they're not going to be ready for an eval at the end of 3 hours, then that's really not what the onboarding is for.
Well, they probably wouldn't be ready for a Form 5 on a high performance until their 4 hours required training is complete.
Right, that's right. And so for those individuals, if we can't get them there, then maybe we need to find an airplane that they can fly or something, right? Just to get them onboarded. And then we have other things we can use to get them the experience they need for the transition to the aircraft that are closer to them or whatever. It's not a one size fits all. So like I said, we're gonna have to take a look at individuals who don't quite fit exactly this description and figure out a way to get them there.
Hey, Matt, Mike Duke here. So having everything you just said is one of the reasons we're not recruiting a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because look at what we're going through and we can't figure out how to get a guy qualified and trained. And we got, like Shane said, 15 different kind of airplanes all over the place. But I would say take some of those pilots and say, go out to my FBO and buy a high performance hour with an instructor and go price that out, and then go to your local CAP instructor and say, I need time to get my HP. And guess what? It's only costing me $80 to fly a 182, and the instructor's free, and I have to pay some gas. And go, think about it. I go, yeah, everybody wants a free ride. Sometimes it ain't going to happen. It's going to take more hours, and yes, you may have to cough up a couple nickels like some of us had in our career to pay for flight training. But there is no bargain like CAP, and that's what I would emphasize. Price it somewhere else.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
It's a great
Thanks.
deal.
Thanks, Mike. As always, bringing us back down to the ground. I've only got one more a new slide, and then we'll be done. So I know we're running a little bit late, but we're almost done here. This is just a quick view of what this chart looks like that hopefully will get sent out, and you'll see by unit number we can see exactly who they are when they joined, and so you can help track people within your units and help push them through. So it's not just like an amorphous thing. We know exactly who's joined. The last big topic I wanted to discuss is a little bit of kudos to ourselves. I'd like to point out that 2 of our instructor pilots and check pilots are now DPEs. So congratulations to those 2 folks, Brian Childs, who's been one for a little while down south, and Will Strider, that's in, I believe, the Lubbock area. So congratulations to both of them. This is a great opportunity for us to make use of DPEs where we need rides. They're actually CAP members. And aside from the ability to give private through ATP ratings, they can also, this is important for all of us, listen carefully, they can also renew CFIs based on activity. That doesn't mean that they automatically renew any CFI, but with the amount of training some of us do in CAP, if we can document the proper experience and show the activity, we have 2 fellow CAP members that have the ability to help us renew CFIs without having to go through a formal FERC. I know that's a great thing, as well as provide gold seal endorsements and all the other things that DPEs do. And recall that any DPE, as part of a check ride, can sign off on a 70-5 during that flight exam, or exam, apparently I forgot the E. You just have to have them sign that one portion that's all the FAA portion, and then we need a CAP person that can just validate the CAP items on there. Really kudos to 2 of our own that have made it to a DPE level.
Shane, can I say something?
Yeah, Izzy, go ahead.
Yeah, congratulations to those 2 guys, but you have to remember when they sign in WIMMERS, they need to be signed off as passengers. We have a couple of problems, I think was with Brian, that, hey, yeah, he's a CAP member, and he's in the list of WIMMERS, and he showed up giving a private pilot, one of the cadets. So it created a huge deal. So just remember, if it's a DPE, it's a DPE, not a CAP member in WIMMERS.
Just remember the hat that you are wearing.
Exactly.
The hat you're wearing.
Jane, I got something I'd like to say, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, Tom, go ahead.
Just want to make sure everyone understands that they can also renew their instructor license by their being a check pilot in CAP. It's in the regulations, so you don't have to do anything except print out your form off of e-services, being a check pilot, and take it in to them and show currency on giving check rides. And it's a simple thing.
Tom, my understanding has always been that not just because you're a CAP instructor or check pilot do you get it renewed. There's a activity or recency of experience which a FSDO has the ability to sign off on should you be able to document it. But not that it's just an automatic thing. I saw Louis kind of nodding his head there, and I don't know, Louis, do you want to comment on that?
I can't help myself. So what Mr. Bishop is referring to is what we call a renewal by duties and responsibilities.
There you go.
And that's on the back of 8710. Normally, that's reserved for a FSDO inspector. And if you go running to a DPE saying, I want to renew on duties and responsibilities, they may put up at least a yield sign. If you go to the FSDO saying, I want to renew on duties and responsibilities, you're definitely going to get a yield sign. And the problem is that the FSDO inspectors get hammered by every airline pilot captain who says, oh, I evaluate a pilot every day that I fly with them. And it's just not true. So for Will and for Jumper, I full disclosure, I'm what they call their managing specialist. So I've given them permission to renew Texas Wing check pilots based on duties and responsibilities. But please don't take that to other wings, and please don't put undue pressure on them to do that automatically. If they say no, you feel free to call me, and we'll talk about it. Or if you can't remember who I am, tell them to get them to call, and we'll all talk about it. I'm not initially opposed to renewing a CFI on duties and responsibilities, given what you guys do. But just know that if you wander into San Antonio, or you wander into North Texas, or you wander into Houston, you may not get the same answer. And so the FAA struggles to be, the goal, I should say, not struggles, that's a Freudian slip. The goal is to be consistent. Unfortunately, so many people think that consistent equals identical, and that's also not true. So please keep those things in mind. If you guys are out there and you're an active check pilot, I certainly don't have a problem with those guys renewing you based on duties and responsibilities, but it is a big blank check that they get. And I don't want anyone to go away with the idea that it's automatic for any DPE and it's automatic for you as a check pilot in CAP.
Louis, this is Tom. What I was talking about has nothing to do with DPEs. It has to do with going into the FSDO and speaking to an inspector.
Okay, well,
So
same
it's
story.
just a different regulation, I believe. So
No, it's all in the same regulation. It's all in Part 61. It's just the duties and responsibilities is a bit of a discretion. And so you may, and so I don't want anyone to come away from this call or any other call thinking that it's a blank check that's always going to be there. Again, consistent doesn't equal identical, but know that if you are a check pilot in this wing and you need to renew based on duties and responsibilities, call Will, call Jumper, and they can look at getting you done.
The last slide I've got is around next projects. This is the same slide that I had given last time. I wanted to give a couple updates. We actually have commissioned now a weight and balance data team. They've met. They've had several meetings, as has the POH Central Repository team. And so hopefully by the next meeting, we may have a centralized Texas wing location and tool set for all weight and balance data across aircraft around Texas, as well as POHs. So if you're going to go to another squadron or another unit or fly an aircraft that you don't typically fly, you'll have access to the information on that aircraft. We're still looking to build out teams for aircraft maps and some of the other stuff that we want to do, but we're slowly making progress on this. If any of these projects sound interesting to you, please reach out to me, because these are active, real things we're working on. So that's the end of the formal presentation tonight. I will continue recording in case anyone has specific questions that they want to raise, but I will, given we've been a little over an hour now, for those that need to drop off and it's late where you are, feel free to do so. And I thank you for joining tonight. Anyone who does have questions, if they want to stick around an extra couple minutes, I'll stay on until 30 minutes past 9:30, either 9:30 or 8:30, depending on what your time zone is, and we can field any questions. But thank you so much for joining.
Hey, Shane, I've got a reattack.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I've got a reattack. So while we were sitting here, I went back and reread the O plan for the onboarding mission, and then had a quick exchange with Mark Hammock.
Okay.
And so it looks like we are able to provide funding for high performance and G1000 training under the A0 onboarding mission, as long as it is conducted in accordance with the CAP 71 transition syllabus.
So you mean more than 3 hours?
More than 3 hours. Whatever we think will be needed when we. So the instructors will have to put together a little training plan, and we'll talk about that. But if you need the 4 flights to do the G1000 transition, or if you need the 4 hours and 25 takeoff and landings for high performance, we can use the onboarding mission for that. Provided,
Bruce, hopefully,
provided that those
go ahead, Matt.
provided that those individuals have a current flight review, and in the case of high performance, they meet the 100 hours PIC time requirement.
Okay, great. That's phenomenal news. That's
it really is.
That's more than the A12 money current pilots get.
Yeah.
They don't need the 100 hours, so that's the reason they got the 10 hours. The 100 hours went away for high performance.
Yeah, if they don't have the 100 hours, or if they don't have a current BFR, they're on their own to go get those things. But once they have them, then we can use this mission.
All right, and what's the process for getting that authorized to start that?
Yeah, so that's that A0 training request form, which we'll send out here to everybody. Squadron, CO, CC or DO, group CC or DO, and then send it to me. And if somebody needs a G1000 or the high performance, then you're just going to follow the syllabus, and we'll document that as we go.
It'd be simple enough to say they have to meet the requirements for a transport mission pilot in order to do the high performance onboarding. I mean, you said 100 hours and a BFR.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
I had one other question. Is regarding the changes to like the 70 dash standards, etc. Is there a way to get notified when they change? Because I feel as though I have to go in every couple of weeks and check if they've updated them, because they push out updates and nobody ever seems to get notified. At least I don't.
Where's our region DOV? Are you still on there, Izzy?
Yes,
oh, there you are, Izzy.
sir.
All right, that's a question for you.
Well, it's not for me, but I'm part of the team. When there is a change, National DOV through the National DO will send an email to the region DOVs, to the WIN DOVs, to the WIN DOs, so that everybody knows about it, and they are supposed to tell their corresponding personnel under their jurisdiction. If you notice on any form, I don't know, I discussed this with Shane, the last page of the regulation or the standard will say what hasn't been changed. But yes, there is a notification process through the members. Sometimes it goes through on the e-services front page, and it says, when you just open your e-services, and it says on the news column, you will see right there like e-services release notes, or regulation so-and-so change, or a standard change. But the leadership is informed about it. So yeah, it's not my fault.
Something seems to be broken in that process, because I never seems to get an update.
Yeah,
well,
I think Izzy is quietly trying to blame me, but I think every email I get, I forward out to everyone. So
yeah, eventually, sometimes it's a process.
I'm not sure that's really happening, Izzy.
Well, you see me every time something changes, I forward it to you. So I'm expecting you forward it to the rest. If I may, a couple of minutes. Okay, I didn't push you on the spot, did I?
No, it's fine. It's fine.
Okay, I heard something about the who pays for the first 4 or 5 for the onboarding and the guys who are being recalled.
Yeah.
Remember, the A7 mission is only for TMP and above.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking is that,
Yes.
I mean, that's the way we've been acting on it, Matt. And so
Yep.
I don't think the A7 mission can actually be used to fund the Form 5 itself for the new person.
Not for these guys. Or for, remember, any CAP member who is not at least a TMP will not get it either. So those guys with only 70 hours in their under their pocket on a yearly basis, they don't use the A7.
So I'm not sure we've heard that before. What I've always heard, Izzy, is that it's for people that are at least not expired, that once you're expired, you're no longer a
But
Form
that,
5 pilot, and therefore you can't qualify for it. But I'd not heard that you also have to have 100 hours and be a TMP.
no. I mean, yes, the 100 hours is part of it. To use the A7 money, you have to be at least you have to have a mission qualification, because the A7 is for mission qualified personnel. So the lowest will be a TMP. That's why you have the B7 or you have the C7, which will be the case for a guy who is onboarding or is being recalled. The other thing that Martin mentioned about the G1000, just keep in mind that those are self-study. If you need credit for those for your G1000 syllabus, it has to be taught by an instructor. And there is a form that an instructor fills out by the time it goes into the G1000 qualification.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Izzy.
That's all I have.
Any other questions out there?
I guess that question that generated a question for me. If somebody comes on on an A24 mission for a requal, they were transport mission pilot, are they able to do a Form 5 on an A7 mission?
Not if they're not current anymore.
Yep.
They have to be, if they lost currency, then they're
not. I mean, the underlying theory is you're flying on an Air Force mission. The Air Force will only allow Air Force approved pilots on there. If they've expired, they're no longer Air Force approved.
This is Gerard. Then is it safe to say that you can fund the onboarding people and you can fund the requalling people, but they're going to pay for their own check rides?
That is,
yeah, that is
that's
correct.
what it sounds like.
Yeah, on the from the CAP side, that is correct. Now, your wing can fund the Form 5. If they really want that pilot to be immediately a Form 5, they can always fund it or half fund it or whatever you guys discuss it. But yes, you are correct. The Air Force is giving us the money to help these people get on board or get recall so they can take a check ride. That check ride has to be paid by the member.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
Why would the Air Force not fund the mission to Form 5 them if they're willing to onboard them? That's just ludicrous.
Well, like I mentioned before, you have all those BFR pilots who are not mission qualified. They don't get the A7 mission. So why will a guy off the street have the privilege of getting paid for their Form 5 when they are not?
They're getting paid for their onboarding.
Look, I don't, I'm going to kind of put a timeout on this conversation. I don't think this is going to be a successful forum to debate why or how it should be. Let's accept that this is what it is, and let's just make sure we understand the rules. There are other forms that we can use to try and influence what should happen in the future. I would also say, look, just at the end of the day, at least compared to when I joined and compared probably to most of when you all joined, the fact that there's funding at all to help onboard people is a monumental step forward. And to Mike Duke's point earlier, even for those that have to pay some share, the share that they have to pay compared to what it would take off the street to get the same level of qualifications is just, a monumental. So let's not devolve into the conversation about why is it this way? It is what it is. This is the set of rules. Thankfully, we have money to help train and onboard people. there is still not money to actually get them their Form 5, though there has never been money for someone to take a Form 5. So, are there other questions, other topics people want to discuss?
One last interpretation, Shane, this is Bruce. On the exemption, and I think I spent too much time trying to analyze that, but as far as non-cap material, when you're flying that, does that include like the COVID samples when we're flying those COVID missions, or is that non-cap material? So
yes, it does.
So
yeah, so
Don't
the
ask.
way that mission was structured, this was structured in a very special way by Cap National, and it was structured, and I don't fully understand the way it was done, but Mark Hammock and I had like a 30-minute discussion. It went all the way up the chain to Moose at the national office and the national commander, and however it is that they structured the mission was able to qualify COVID samples to be able to be flown by non-commercial pilots.
Okay.
So there was something done. I can't explain it because I don't understand it, but I was given a clear message it was acceptable.
You've given me enough explanation. Thank you.
Hey, Shane, Steve, you should end on a positive note and talk about the success for Falcon Virgo. That was a good workout for everybody.
Go ahead.
No,
go ahead.
Once the Army was adamant about wanting to do the Falcon Virgo exercise. It was a week ago, and with the assistance of crews from Las Cruces, Texas 215, all out here by ourselves, managed to pull off a support mission, flying effectively 24/7 or 24/5, with the pilots getting about a little over 8 hours of flying time a day. We used up a couple airplanes in terms of hours. It was a safe exercise, no personnel injuries, no aircraft incidents, and we had good local support, quality flying on the part of the mission pilots, a very positive and rewarding exercise. So
we essentially had 4 pilots put on a 24/5 exercise, fly 12-hour duty days, back-to-back sorties, 9 hours scheduled per day of flight time. And I'm not looking forward to doing it again.
I was in a meeting with National Commander and the Cap USAF. General Smith was very, very impressed with you guys. Was very kudos for the guys on Las Cruces, and mainly the guys you, Shane, on El Paso and your people. He was very impressed.
So that's what good training gets quality pilots. That's what we all like to produce.
So any other questions? Otherwise, I'm going to call it a night. Any other last minute important things? Okay. Thanks so much for joining. Thanks so much for sticking around. As always, you know where to reach out to me. You know how to reach out to Matt Martin on any of the topics he covered tonight. And as always, fly safe, teach your people well, and let's hold the standard. Thank you very much.